Hey everybody, Gabe, obviously from Thinking Outside the Longbox. We're doing our year-end stuff, and we're doing it as a video. So I'm somewhere else. I'm in Virginia, helping my mother-in-law with some moving stuff. So as a consequence, I don't have all the equipment I normally have. So I'm not 100% sure what the video quality is going to be like, but hopefully you can hear me just fine, and we will go from there. So, as always, we have a list of things that we talked about this year, that we were excited about this year, that, we want to clearly state as our favorites of the year. So, with no further ado, I will get into my notes and we will talk about some of the stuff that I really am either looking forward to or enjoyed in 2020, which, not a lot of cool shit happened in 2020. It's kind of a terrible year. Anyway, so first thing, favorite trailer. Hands down, my favorite trailer is the 3-minute trailer that they released very recently for Dune. I am more than excited to see Dune, and frankly, if theaters ever open up again, it is the first movie that I want to see in the movie theater. It is the kind of epic, grand story that deserves to be told in glorious, gigantic movie theater screen. Like, I would even be willing to go see this at like an IMAX. I am more than excited for this movie. But in a lot of ways, it's starting to feel like Dune as an adaptation is like one of those cursed things. Between Yudorowsky losing the ability to make it, which is documented in the documentary Yudorowsky's Dune, and then also, David Lynch's weird version of it, the Sci-Fi Channel's version of it, which is much closer to the book, but still isn't, great because it was made for television. Now that we finally have a film that, at least so far, appears to be faithful to the story while also having that like epic grand scope that only like a theatrical film can have. I'm very excited for this movie. I love Dune. It's one of my favorite book series, and Dune itself is one of my favorite books. I love the David Lynch version of it. I love the Sci-Fi Channel version of it. I can't wait to see it done bigger and better, and with technology that can, at the very least, mirror what they talk about in the book visually. I think Lynch got pretty close. I think the sci-fi version is a little bit closer. I think we're finally at a point with film technology, and honestly, in like 50 years, we're going to look at this dude and be like, oof, that looks terrible. Can you imagine like what Dune would look like with technology in 50 years? Probably some kind of weird virtual thing. I shouldn't say things like that because honestly, Johnny Mnemonic takes place in 2021, and you know what? It is kind of accurate. I can't wet wire information into my brain, but past that, pretty much everything that's in Johnny Mnemonic is happening in real life. So, anyway, favorite trailer, Dune. Favorite movie. This was the hardest one. There were good movies that came out, and what's funny is a lot of the movies that were memorable to me are not the kind of movies that we typically talk about on the show. Bill and Ted, Face the Music was a really fun movie. I'm sure critics and all sorts of other people hate it, but I love Bill and Ted. I had fun watching it with my family, and that makes it a good movie. Unlike Juan, my metric for good movies is not money. It's a joke. Sorry, Juan. I really enjoyed Trolls World Tour because I love trolls. It was not the same kind of emotional experience that the first Trolls film was, but it's still really fun. And again, enjoyed watching it with my family. I watched a few really great horror movies on Shudder. A lot of them were older. I watched a lot of the Joe Bob Briggs stuff, and as a consequence, I watched a lot of movies that were older this year. I didn't watch a ton of new stuff. Mulan was good, not without its controversy, not only because of, the director and all that stuff, but also because it cost $30 from Disney. And, going back, I understand that because they had already put so much money into advertising, they had to recoup some of that somewhere. Um, I struggled with this category because I didn't see anything really that was mega standout until this last, over Christmas weekend. My family and I sat down to watch the new Pixar movie Soul. And man, it was really, really good. Typically in movies like this, my family likes to make fun of me because I cry, but this one didn't. It was good, and it was about loving who you are and what you do and having passion for the things that you throw yourself into. You know, I don't make a single dime from this podcast. I just love doing it. I don't, I don't make a ton of money doing what I do for my work, but it satisfies me and it makes me feel good. And that's something I've never had in a job before. And so, with my wife and I's ability to make ends meet, it allows me to do this, and it allows me to do things that are actually important. Right now I'm across the country helping my mother-in-law with stuff. If I worked a job, I wouldn't be able to do that. And when I come back in to Virginia in March for like a whole month, if I had a regular job, I wouldn't be able to do that. So now I can focus on the things that I find most important in my life. And I think in a lot of ways, that's the message that Soul's trying to convey. Like, we're all stuck, in these weird places and situations, and everything has just been so kind of chaotic this year that I think it's important to find the thing that moves you and do that, because that's what's going to get us through. So, favorite movie of the year, Soul. Um, I don't feel like it's a cop out because I just watched it. It's it's a different pick, I think, from what I would normally pick. I think most of my picks this year are a little different because it's not. I still love weird shit. I watched this movie last night that made no kind of sense, and I loved it. You know, but I would not call Blood Beat my favorite movie of the year. Also, it's from like '84. Like, that's the thing. I find myself like revisiting stuff or like watching old things that I missed because a lot of the time, like a movie like Mulan, I would have loved to see in the theater, but it didn't come out. Wonder Woman '84, same thing. I haven't watched it yet, and I've heard things, but those kind of things, Mel and I would make an event, we'd go with the kids, or we'd go on a date, and that's just not happening this year. So the big movies that usually are that like boom, yeah, have just don't exist. Like blockbusters, I mean, maybe there were summer blockbusters, but for the life of me, I don't think I saw any of them, and I can't remember what any of them were. You know, I know like Tenant came out, didn't watch it. I know some Tom Cruise war movie came out, but I think it was only on like Apple, so I didn't watch it. Wonder Woman's on HBO. Like, so much is on like these weird segmented streaming services, and they're like not weird and they're not bad, but I don't have subscriptions to them, and I'm not always willing to pay the price to get a subscription just to watch like one movie. Right now we're watching Wonder Woman '84 for the next recording, and I got to figure out what I'm gonna do for HBO Max. Like, do I really want to get it, or do I want to harass somebody to borrow their account or something. I don't know. Anyway, favorite movie still Soul. Favorite TV show, very much in the same vein as movies. I found myself leaning towards something that was a little more hopeful, a little more fun, a little more silly, a little more family oriented. Um, if I had to do runners up, uh, the Joe Bob Briggs specials. They're coming out with another season on Shudder. I'm very excited about that. Creep Show, really, really good on Shudder. Cursed Movies was really good. I watched a lot of Shudder this year. Um, Cursed Movies was really, really good. I enjoyed that. The Movies That Made Us, I really enjoyed on the Netflix show. I've been watching Mindhunter. I know that's not new, but it is way up there in shows that I enjoyed this year. But I think my favorite show, and especially the shows that we have watched for the podcast, has to be We Are the Champions. I don't think I have binged a show quite like that in a really long time, where I watched the first episode, was like, damn, I want to watch all of these, and so I did. Like, that is not a normal thing for me anymore. Like, I put things off so much now because I know I just have all this ridiculous spare time. But We Are the Champions, what a great show. It's fun, it's funny, there's crazy stuff happening in it. You get to watch people eat peppers that they shouldn't. You get to watch people run down a hill in like the most dangerous and terrifying way. You get to watch people try to make frogs jump the way they want them to. You get to see giant hairstyles. You get to see how much Mother Russia uses dogs to assert their dominance over Europe in the most ridiculous sport I've ever seen in my whole life. you know, it is a great show that I think shows the the breadth of people and what drives them. Like Soul, it's about passion and finding what you're passionate about and just running for it like you wouldn't believe. I mean, and these people, I mean, the people chasing the wheel of cheese, they are literally running for it. Like, it's nuts. Anyway, that show is awesome. If you haven't had the chance to watch it yet, I highly, highly recommend We Are the Champions. Favorite comic book? This one was tough. I didn't do a lot of comic book reading this year. I didn't do a lot of reading this year. On my Goodreads, I log what I've been reading. I had set a goal for myself of 2020 at 24 books, which is 2 a month, which is well within my range. I think I read like close to 50 books last year. With COVID and starting a new business and being kind of at home all the time and not having, a lot of the books I read are audiobooks. And I don't have a commute. Like, my commute is to my house, and my computer, I have it connected to a TV, so I've been watching a lot more television, Netflix and Hulu and stuff, than I have been listening to books, which I'm going to rectify. This year I picked up Audible. It's fairly inexpensive for what it gives you, and so far I've been really, really enjoying like the content that I've been able to find. And it's introduced me to a book that Hannah wanted to read, Girl in the Locked Room, which has been really good. But the best comic I think that I read this year came from Inhumans. I don't believe it released this year. I want to say it released in like 2018 or 2019. But I didn't get an opportunity to read it until this year, is Yurtowski's Screaming Planet. Screaming Planet is a comic book about a planet that people destroy, the people that live on the planet destroy, and all of the negative emotions that are involved with the destruction of the planet effectively attach to a chunk of that exploding planet and begin to hurtle itself through space. And as it's, flying through space, other planets that it pass, it then brings those negative emotions out of the inhabitants of those planets, and it creates these situations where the status quo is completely destroyed by the emotions of the screaming planet. Very bizarre premise. I understand that. But the meat of it is that each story has a very interesting tale to tell, a new race and planet of creatures that have their own, hang-ups, their own pathos, their own mythologies, and it's just this progressive world building where each issue in the collection is its own thing. And because each one is its own thing, it allows for an enormous amount of creativity in writing and artistic style. Originally published in issues of Heavy Metal and Metal Hurlant. Yurtowski, obviously one of my favorite writers and directors, super bizarre guy. If you haven't seen his movies, I've talked about him before, but things like Holy Mountain, El Topo are some of the best surreal film that you can watch. And of course, the documentary that was about the version of Dune that he was about to make is definitely a must watch, which, I mentioned in the first one. So try not to talk about Yurtowski the entire time I'm doing this, but also he's great. All right. My favorite pop culture classic that we watched this year. Looking at all of them, there are tons of good movies. Lost Boys, Predator, Terminator. There's a lot of cool stuff that we watched this year. A lot of the things that drove my childhood. I'm excited to watch Battle Royale with the guys too. Technically, that's this year. A part of me wanted to say that because I absolutely love that movie, and I'm super jazzed to watch it after watching Alice in Borderland. But I feel like that would be disingenuous because I haven't watched it yet, and it's like the last episode of the year, and it feels a little cop out to say BR. So instead, going back through the year, looking at what we've already watched, I have to go with Snatch. Snatch is hands down one of the most entertaining, funny, violent, and downright hyperkinetic movies I have ever seen. I loved it when I watched it the first time. I loved it when I watched it the 12th time. I loved it when I watched it this time. Guy Ritchie, when Guy Ritchie does Guy Ritchie right, is incredible. The Gentleman, which technically came out in 2019, but I know we watched this year as part of the regular show. Great movie. Snatch, great. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, awesome. Revolver, awesome. Rock and Rolla, great. Like, there's so many awesome Guy Ritchie movies. And, the Sherlock Holmes movies bring some of that like kinetic energy that Guy Ritchie does to him. They're not quite the same, but still really good. I really, really like him. He even brought something really good to Aladdin. Some of the scenes where Aladdin is like running through the streets and stuff. Man, Guy Ritchie directed it in those moments. So anyway, Snatch. What is this for? The Russians? Yeah. Say no more. If you haven't seen Snatch, slap yourself in the face and go watch it. And then you can talk to me about the squeaky dog. Interviews. This year has been a banner year for interviews. A full half hour with Jim Beaver. A full half hour with David Ajala. A full half hour with Emily Swallow. Let's see. Let me go look really quick. Juan gave me the list, and just the amount of people that we have interviewed this year has been awesome. Like, I absolutely love doing the interviews. I like talking with people. I like learning about their methods. I just love interacting with these people. Um, Frank Gogol, I have to give him a shout out. What a great friend of the show. He's always just hustling. Such an awesome, awesome guy. Ed Begley Jr., how crazy is that? Can't believe that I talked to him. Gail Cronauer, what a lovely woman. What an interesting conversation to have with somebody that has found that passion that we're talking about, like at this point in her life. And listening to her and Jake Horowitz talk about, how the town responded to them making their movie there. Anders Heinrichsen, uh, who says his name Anders Heinrichsen. I mean, Blood Machines. Blood Machines was almost my favorite movie. Um, Again, it sits in such a weird spot because it feels like a TV show, but it feels like a movie, but it feels like a YouTube video, and it feels like a music video. I fucking love the movie. Color Out of Space made that list real close too, but I, man, Blood Machines was so good, and getting the chance to talk to Anders was such a great conversation. But the most amazing interview that I did this year, and honestly, this is no bullshit, the most amazing interview that I have done the entire time that we have done Thinking Outside the Longbox is my conversation with Tommy Chong. They tell you, don't meet your heroes. If Tommy Chong's one of your heroes, go meet him. Because I didn't feel like I was doing an interview. I felt like I was having a conversation with someone that was my friend. And very, very rarely do our interviews feel like that. I take a lot of pride in being very professional. I take a lot of pride in asking questions that make my, interviewee think. I try to ask them things that are unique. Um, Tommy Chong didn't need that. Tommy Chong needed the opportunity to just talk, and it was incredible. He had wisdom to dispense, like some dude on a holy mountain. He had jokes to tell. He had history to reveal about himself and his love of music and how it pushed him into acting and how acting pushed him into directing. He talked about his relationship with Cheech. Those are, it's, when we think about the people from the past that have created the pop culture that we consume still. I mean, this guy made movies in the 60s and 70s and music in the 60s and 70s and 80s. That's decades ago. And we still love that stuff. We still, man, I watch Up in Smoke probably once a year. It's one of the few movies that I watch a lot. You know, when we're talking to people like that aren't going to be around forever, but have created the pop culture, the culture, really, the actual culture that we love and that we are focused on, we get the opportunity to not just learn about them, not just learn about the projects they were working on, but also to just learn about ourselves, like, and why we become so fixated on it. the fine art of yesteryear, the high culture of, orchestral music and oil paintings and, Shakespeare. When that was coming out, it was popular because it was pop culture. So to look past this artifice that our society creates, separating, movies, TV, popular music from things from the past, which are somehow better because they've stood a longer test of time, seems like a false notion to me. Because when I talk to the guy that made the Corsican Brothers, which is one of the worst movies I've ever seen, I know that in spite of the fact that I can't stand that movie, he put all his effort into it. In spite of the fact that I can't stand, this musician or that movie or this TV show, so much effort and work has gone into creating that art. And I love to learn about that. I love to learn what the people that made it think of the thing that they made. And Tommy Chong didn't even need a question to tell me about that. He just needed the opportunity to talk. And it's amazing. Best interview I've ever done. Most fun I've ever had. Like, most emotional aftermath. A part of me want to be like, can we be best friends? Can I call you like once a week? Like, not even for an interview, but that would be creepy. So I didn't. Very close second to Jim Beaver. What a great guy. Second time I've interviewed him. Most humble, down to earth human being that's probably one of the bigger parts of one of the biggest fandoms in the world. Yeah, great conversation with him too. Yeah, that's it. Movie, trailer, TV show, book, pop culture classic, interview. Those are my favorites this year. I don't know. There's runners up. Movies, like I said, definitely got to put Blood Machines way high. Color Out of Space technically came out in 2019, but still pretty up there. I mean, is it wrong that my favorite movies, like 2 years in a row, both had Nicolas Cage in them? Says a lot about Nicolas Cage. He is Schrodinger's actor, best and worst actor all at the same time. Trailers, nothing really has excited me except for Dune. Pop culture classics. They're classics for a reason. Love them. I guess that's pretty much it. I hope you guys have a happy new year. I hope you guys have a better year. I hope we all have a better year. Until next time, I've been Gabe. Bye.